The sound that we are going to be making today sounds like this. Before this video begins, I would just like to encourage you guys to subscribe for more music production tutorials and hit that bell for notifications. Or if you would like to support me and my music, or if you are interested in private lessons, link to all of those things is down in the description below as well. Now this is an extremely juicy laser transformer powering down sound. I really like it, it's super cool, but it is really not as complicated as it sounds. Before I go over the patch, I just want to say I routed it into a mixture channel 1 and I threw on a fruity multiband compressor. This, I changed no settings at all. This is just the default compressor. I just threw it in and I made sure that I pulled the master down a bit so it wasn't compressing too hard. You may see it compressing a little bit towards the end, but it's just doing basic multiband compression stuff, controlling the frequencies. Alright, with everything turned off, let's start from the beginning. This sound begins its life as a saw wave. Nothing fancy there. To start off, I'm just going to create this slowing down LFO shape. What I'm going to do here is just create a very simple LFO shape. This is nothing complex at all. It starts out as a triangle, just drag it to make it a saw. I'm going to throw it on trigger, uncheck BPM. We want it to be in Hertz mode. We don't want it to be tempo synced. So I'm going to have it at 20 Hertz. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to pull up envelope 2, which looks like this. You can see all the time variables down here. It looks like this, and I'm just going to drag it onto the rate of LFO1 right here, and I'm going to bring it up 33. Now this is basically going to speed the LFO up 33 from 20 Hertz right here. It's going to speed it up 33 at the very top of this envelope, and when it reaches the bottom, it is going to be at 20 Hertz, which is very slow. Now you can't hear it right now because nothing is routed into LFO1, but we are going to route stuff later. Alright, so all we're going to do here is drop it down 2 octaves, and we are going to throw on FM from B. And that is all we need to do for the first oscillator. When we flip on oscillator B, it is also a saw wave. It doesn't look like a saw wave, but I'm using sync here. What you want to do is pull up sync window, which is going to be full, and we're going to bring it up to around 4, which means it's 4 times the waveform. Now it doesn't look like 4 saw waves because I have it in full mode, which means there is some crossfading of the waveform. But when we bring the level all the way down and drop it down 2 octaves, we get this sound. We get a much more gritty and much more harmonic sound. Also, a key tip here, if you want it to sound exactly the same every time, you need to bring these phase randomness knobs down. That means it's going to start from exactly the same position every round. I always do that for FM. So now you can see we just have this brick wall of sound going on here. It sounds nothing like a laser. What we are going to do to give it that laser sound and give it the dynamics is not modulate anything as far as the volume or the FM. It's all going to be in the filter. So when we flip on the filter, first thing we're going to do is select a bandpass 24, which is a very tight bandpass. We're going to bring the cutoff all the way down, and we are going to modulate it all the way up with LFO1. It's very simple. With the resonance, we're also going to bring it up 25, and we're going to bring it down -15. And this means that when the rate is very, very fast, the resonance is not quite as high, so we don't have as big of a sweeping motion while the LFO is super, super fast. Also just did some simple stuff like bringing the fat all the way up, and I bumped the drive up 20 for a little extra saturation. Now with the filter sweeping up and down with LFO1, we get the laser sound. Sounds beautiful. Now it's time to pop into the effects section. Step 1 is hyperdimension. I just brought the mix up here to about 40%, size down, mix here up to 45%, just basic hyperdimension stuff. You all know what this does. I am, however, going to route envelope 2 to the mix knob here and bring it down -30. So when the speed is super, super fast, we don't have a huge mix on the dimension expander. This is going to make it sound a little bit cleaner, and you can hear every individual like really fast, rapid motion of the filter. Next, flip on the disto. What I'm doing here is I just selected downsample. Now this is very, like it's not important at all. You don't need to have this in the sound. I just liked it, add a little bit of texture. And what I have here is I have the drive very low at 15% and the mix very low at also 15%. And this is just going to add a very, very tiny high-end little ring you can see in the waveform here. It's this little bit right here. Now you may not be able to hear it right now, but you will hear it a little bit more when we bring in multiband compression. Next up, we are going to flop on a flanger. Now I did Why did I say that? All we're gonna do with this flanger is just leave everything normal and bring the mix to 50%. That's all you need. If you just have a subtle flanger going in the background, it adds a little more texture. Not really too much difference here. Next, we're gonna flip on a phaser. And what we're gonna do here is not complicated either. We're just gonna bring the rate down to 0, bring the feedback down a little bit, 60%. And the mix, we're just gonna leave at 40%. This is gonna give like a guitar amp sound effect. You can hear when I turn the mix all the way up. It makes it sound very harsh and kind of hollow. I wanted to bring that texture into the normal sound just without, not having it as strong. So I'm just gonna bring it down to about 40%. All right, it's very dry. It's time to bring in a bit of a chorus. What we're gonna do here, we're gonna bring the depth to 12.8 is what I have it at right now. And it's gonna go down -30 with envelope 2 here. So this is the same thing that we did with the dimension expander. I just brought the mix down when the rate was really fast. I did the same thing here, except I did it with the depth. Also, make sure this says HPF for high pass filter and bring that down to about 200 Hertz just to make sure you don't get any low, muddy frequencies getting all chorused. Mix is at 50%, giving a nice chorus effect. Now this sounds cool, but it is not very powerful. This is where the power comes in. It is in the multiband compression, as you probably guessed. Threshold down to -20. I brought the release up to around 250, somewhere around there. Just anywhere around 12 o'clock is going to be fine. This is going to keep the dynamics of the sound, but still give that really powerful, strong harmonic content that multiband compressors bring. Also, we're gonna pop the gain up to 15, and we're gonna raise the mid-band a little bit to 114. This is what we have now. Not only has the sound gotten more power, but now you can see that little bit of bit crushing that I did. Now it does sound great, but it lacks texture. It does lack room as well. So we're gonna throw on a little bit of delay, and I'm doing the typical metallic delay thing here. I brought the feedback to 50%, and I'm modulating it down -50 with envelope 2. Once again, I didn't want there to be a lot of feedback when the LFO was going super fast, because there didn't need to be. There's too much speed there to really detect the texture that the delay is going to bring. I have both BPM and link on. I brought it to 164 on both sides. Kept it on normal, and I just rolled off the lows here. Now that is not necessary. That's just something I like to get into the habit of doing, not delaying the super low frequencies. Mix is at 85, going down 85 with envelope 2 again. Just the same thing I did with the feedback. This is what really gives the sound life. Now it really sounds like a high-tech robot or machine or something like that. What I also did was I assigned a macro knob, this feed knob here, to the feedback, and I just bumped it up 20%. So if we wanted to have a more robotic or metallic feel to it, we can give that very easily with this macro. That could be really handy for rhythm stuff. Finally, a reverb, just a little bit of plate reverb here, nothing complicated. Brought the pre-delay down, size down to 25%, low cut up a little bit, width all the way up. That's very important. We don't want the reverb to be mono, we want it to be stereo. And 15% is all we need for the mix, just a little bit of room noise. Thank you all so much for watching this tutorial. The link to download the SERUM preset is in the description below. As I said before in the intro, if you'd like to support me in my music or you're interested in private lessons, link to both of those things are also in the description. Once again, thank you guys for all the support, and I will see you in the next video.